My name is Lorraine Hayes. I am 66 years old, a retired librarian. And, until that Tuesday afternoon, I believed I had already faced the worst life could throw at me. I lost my husband Thomas to a heart attack 8 years ago. I survived the loneliness of widowhood, the silence of a house built for two. I thought I understood grief. I was wrong. The day began like any other in Plainfield, Illinois. I made my tea at 3 o'clock sharp, just as I always had, and set the cup on the small oak table by the window. Outside, the air was strangely heavy, like the sky was holding its breath. I heard the local station murmur about a storm system tracking northeast, but in Illinois we are used to storms. We know to watch, but we rarely panic. At 3:15, the siren split the air. That long, terrible wail that shakes you down to the bone. Tornado on the ground, the radio announcer warned. Voice urgent. Moving toward Will County. Plainfield residents take shelter immediately. My hands shook as I rushed through the house. I grabbed what I could fit in one small suitcase, the wedding album Thomas and I smiled through in 1976. The watch he had worn every day for 30 years. My mother's hand-sewn quilt, and a folder of insurance papers. 40 years of living. And this was all I could carry. I stumbled down into the basement, heart hammering, clutching Thomas' old wool sweater to my chest. The house groaned above me, wood twisting, glass exploding, as if the very bones of the home were being ripped apart. The roar came next, deafening, like a freight train tearing through my living room. The ground trembled, and I pressed myself into the corner, praying it would hold. And then, silence. Not peace. Not calm, just the hollow emptiness that follows destruction. When I pushed open the basement door, the world I knew no longer existed. My kitchen table was gone. My roof was gone. Above me, nothing but bruised sky and scattered boards. The rose garden I had tended for 20 years was shredded into brown stems and broken petals. Debris littered every corner like confetti from a cruel celebration. I cried then, for the first time since Thomas' funeral. My body shook as I stood in the ruins of my life, sweater still clutched to my chest. Neighbors hurried over, calling my name, but their own homes were damaged. Their own families huddled together. The Red Cross spoke of shelters, but the thought of sleeping in a crowded gymnasium left me hollow. I needed family. I needed my son. I borrowed a neighbor's phone and dialed Michael's number, whispering into the receiver with all the hope I had left. Son, it's Mom. My house is gone. The next morning, I drove north on I-55 toward Chicago, my old sedan rattling with every gust of wind. The sky was bright, almost mocking, as if nothing had happened the day before. My suitcase and 3 trash bags of belongings were wedged in the back seat, the smell of wet plaster and mud filling the car. I told myself this was temporary, just until the insurance processed, just until I could find a small apartment. Michael lived in River North, in one of those modern glass towers that looked like they belonged in a magazine. When I pulled up, the doorman glanced at my battered car and the garbage bags inside with raised eyebrows. He handed me a visitor badge, like I was an intruder instead of a mother coming home. Michael opened the door before I knocked. For a moment, my heart lifted. He had Thomas eyes, that same shade of blue that once made me fall in love. Mom, he said, stepping aside. His tone was careful, measured, like every word had been rehearsed. The apartment gleamed white furniture, polished wood floors, art pieces that screamed money but not warmth. And then she appeared. Tessa, 32. Sleek ponytail, silk blouse that probably cost more than my monthly pension. She smiled, but her eyes were cold. Lorraine, how awful about your house, she said, her gaze flicking to my trash bags on the floor. I sat on the edge of their perfect white sofa, terrified of leaving a stain. It's just temporary. I explained quickly. Until the insurance comes through. I can help with meals. With laundry. Ill, stay out of the way. Michael lowered himself into the armchair opposite me. Not beside me. He folded his hands like he was conducting business. The thing is, Mom, Tessa and I have been talking. We value our privacy here. This is our sanctuary. I blinked at him, certain I had misheard. Privacy? Michael. I lost everything yesterday. I don't need space. I need family. Tessa leaned forward, her voice gentle but firm, the way you speak to a child. We just think you'd be more comfortable somewhere else. There are excellent extended stay hotels near the Magnificent Mile. Very safe. Very clean. They even have kitchenettes. My chest tightened. And how am I supposed to pay for that? The insurance money won't come for weeks. Michael shifted. I can give you a few hundred to get started. A few hundred? As if I were a stranger. As if decades of motherhood could be bought out with pocket change. I stood, knees aching, dignity shredded. So that's it, I whispered. Your mother doesn't belong in your sanctuary. Neither of them spoke. The silence was louder than the storm that had destroyed my home. I drove away from River North with my 3 trash bags rattling in the back seat, and my heart heavier than any storm could make it. The city skyline glittered against the night sky, but to me it looked like a wall of glass keeping me out. I parked first near Lower Wacker, that dark stretch beneath the streets where delivery trucks roared and shadows lingered. It was hidden enough that no one looked twice at a battered sedan. The first night. I curled up in the driver's seat with Thomas' sweater draped over me. My neck stiffened, my legs cramped, and every sound a car door slamming, footsteps echoing made me jolt awake. I ate stale crackers from my purse, sipping from a water bottle that tasted faintly of rust. I told myself it was only for one night. Tomorrow, Michael would call back, change his mind. But tomorrow came, and nothing changed. By the second night, the air had turned damp and cold. I moved my car to a Walmart parking lot on the edge of Cicero, hoping to disappear among the overnight trucks. I washed my face in the fluorescent-lit bathroom, avoiding my reflection. The woman in the mirror was hollow-eyed, hair tangled, shoulders slumped. I couldn't recognize the mother who once hosted birthday parties with balloons tied to every chair. On the third night, I woke at 2 a.m. with a stabbing pain in my back and tears already streaming down my face. I pressed my hands to my mouth so no one would hear me cry. I thought of Michael as a boy, the way he used to clutch my hand crossing the street, the way he begged for one more story before bed. Where had that boy gone? When had he become a man who turned his mother away, desperate for warmth? I rummaged through my purse. That's when I found it. A thin, faded business card tucked between receipts and expired coupons. The edges were soft from years of being carried. The ink smudged but still legible. Adrian Cole. Adrian. My first love. The boy who promised to build me a life beyond Plainfield before college whisked him away. We lost touch. Life pulling us in different directions. But I never threw away that card. Somehow, through marriages and funerals and decades of dust, it stayed with me. I stared at the old number printed beneath his name. My hand trembled as I traced the digits, wondering if they still connected to anything at all, wondering if he was even alive. That night, alone in the cold silence of a Walmart lot, I held the card to my chest. For the first time since the tornado, I felt something dangerous. Hope. By the fourth morning, exhaustion had hollowed me out. My body ached from sleeping curled up in the front seat. My stomach cramped from gas station food, and my soul felt scraped raw. I stared at that faded business card in the pale light of dawn, debating with myself like a madwoman. What would I even say? Hi, Adrian. Remember me? I am homeless now. My pride screamed at me to throw the card away, to keep my last shred of dignity intact. But loneliness is louder than pride, and loneliness was all I had left. My fingers shook as I dialed the number. 1 ring. 2. Then a voice steady, deep, touched with the gravel of age. Cold development. Adrian speaking. I nearly dropped the phone. After 50 years, I knew that voice instantly. Adrian? It's Lorraine Hayes. Well, it used to be Lorraine Carter. Silence. For a heartbeat. I thought the line had gone dead. Then he whispered my name, like it was both a question and a memory. Lorraine? The dam inside me broke. Words tumbled out in a rush. I am sorry to call you like this. My house in Plainfield. It was destroyed in the tornado. I tried staying with my son in Chicago, but he didn't. My throat tightened. I don't have anywhere else to go. Where are you? His voice sharpened. No hesitation. No disbelief. Just action. I am in a Walmart parking lot off Cicero Avenue. Stay there. I am on my way. Adrian. You don't have to. Lorraine? He interrupted. Firm but gentle. I've been waiting 50 years for this call. Please, let me come. 2 hours later, I sat in my car watching every vehicle that turned into the lot, my heart pounding so hard it hurt. Then a silver SUV rolled in slowly, windows tinted, moving like the driver was searching. The engine cut off. The door opened, and there he was, Adrian Cole. His hair was silver now, cropped neatly, his shoulders broad and solid. Time had carved lines around his eyes, but when those storm-gray eyes met mine through the windshield, the years collapsed like they had never existed. He walked to my car, his stride confident but unhurried. He tapped on the glass, and when I rolled down the window, he smiled soft, familiar, devastating. Hello, Lorraine. My throat closed, words lost. I wanted to apologize for my wrinkled clothes, my unwashed hair, the smell of loss clinging to me. But before I could, he leaned closer. You look beautiful, he said. The tears came, unstoppable, right there in a Walmart lot. I broke down in sobs. I hadn't allowed myself in years. Adrian didn't flinch. He opened my door, helped me stand, and folded me into his arms. Come home, he whispered. Let me take care of you. The drive north felt like entering another world. The city's gray concrete softened into quiet streets, lined with tall maples turning gold. Adrian's SUV wound through Lakeview, finally stopping in front of a stone house that seemed to rise from the earth itself. It wasn't gaudy like the glass towers downtown. It was dignified, built of timber and limestone, with wide windows catching the afternoon light and a porch that wrapped around like open arms. I stepped out slowly, afraid my ruined shoes would stain the cobblestone drive. Adrian unloaded my 3 trash bags and the dented suitcase as if they were treasures. He carried Thomas' old toolbox under one arm like it belonged there. Inside, the house was warm in a way money can't always buy. Hardwood floors gleamed honey brown. Books filled shelves that stretched to the ceiling. Photographs dotted the walls, not glossy portraits, but snapshots of communities rebuilt. Ribbon cuttings at schools, and workers smiling in front of new homes. This is your company? I asked, touching a framed newspaper clipping. Coal redevelopment brings hope to Joliet families. He nodded. Started with one small project after a flood in '85. Grew bigger than I ever imagined. But it always came back to one thing, helping people find home again. His eyes found mine. Maybe I built all this, waiting for you to walk through the door. We sat at a long oak table in his kitchen, sunlight spilling across polished counters. He grilled chicken with the ease of a man used to fending for himself. I hadn't had a real meal in days. When he set the plate in front of me, the smell alone made me cry. I shouldn't have called, I said softly between bites. I didn't want to be a burden. Lorraine, he said, his voice steady. You could never be a burden. You're the only unfinished chapter of my life. I looked down at my wrinkled hands, ashamed of the years etched into them. I am not the girl you remember. He reached across the table, covered my hand with his. No. You're better. You're real. You've lived. You've survived. And you're still standing. Something inside me shifted. For the first time since the tornado, I felt more than just loss. I felt possibility. When I rose to leave the kitchen, thanking him awkwardly, he stopped me at the hallway. Stay here, he said, as long as you need. No clocks. No limits. This house has been waiting for you. And in that moment, I believed him. Days turned into weeks inside Adrian's house by the lake. And for the first time since the storm, I could breathe again. Mornings began with coffee on the porch, watching the water catch the light like shards of glass. Afternoons I spent in his library, curled in a chair with books I hadn't read since my days at the Plainfield branch. Evenings, I cooked roast chicken, stew, pies that filled the air with cinnamon, and Adrian ate every bite with a gratitude that lit his storm-gray eyes. He treated me not as a guest, not as a charity case, but as someone essential to his life. When he asked, almost casually, one morning, would you ever consider making this permanent? My heart skipped. I didn't answer then, but I carried the question with me like a secret flame. Then the phone rang. Michael's name flashed across the screen. My chest tightened. I hadn't spoken to him since the night he sent me away. I let it ring once, twice, before answering. Mom, he said, tone carefully measured. I've been trying to reach you. Where are you? I am with a friend, I replied, keeping my voice steady. A friend? He hesitated. Mrs. Patterson told me you weren't in the extended stay anymore. Who exactly are you staying with? I looked around Adrian's warm kitchen. The bouquet of fresh lilies had bought that morning. The faint smell of cedar from the fireplace. Someone who doesn't see me as a burden. Silence stretched on the line. Then, Mom, I think we should talk. Maybe you could stay in our guest room after all. Tessa and I have been rethinking things. The words should have warmed me. Instead, they chilled. Where was this sudden generosity when I was sleeping in a Walmart lot that weekend? Michael and Tessa came to dinner. Tessa carried a gift bag, candles wrapped in tissue. Her smile, just a little too bright. At the table, Michael steered every conversation back to Adrian's business. Real estate must be fascinating, he said, sipping his wine. I work with insurance portfolios myself. Maybe we could explore some synergies. Adrian listened politely, but I saw the flicker in his jaw, the way his eyes cooled. He had dealt with men like Michael his entire career. He didn't need to say a word. The silence spoke volumes. Later, after they left, Adrian closed the door and turned to me. His voice was calm, but iron ran beneath it. I know exactly what your son is after, Lorraine. And we need to decide how to handle it. The following week, Adrian told me he had invited Michael and Tessa for another dinner. My stomach sank, but his eyes held steady. It's time, he said simply. We need clarity. They arrived, dressed as though stepping into a boardroom, Michael in a tailored gray suit, Tessa in a sleek black dress, diamonds winking at her ears. She handed me another gift bag, this time with gourmet chocolates. Just a small token, she said with sugary sweetness. I set it aside, unopened. We ate Mariah's roast beef in heavy silence. Michael tried small talk about traffic on the Kennedy Expressway, about Chicago's real estate boom. But Adrian gave him nothing more than polite nods. When dessert plates were cleared, Adrian folded his hands on the table and spoke. "I want to discuss Lorraine," he said evenly, "and the way you've treated her." Michael's shoulders stiffened. "I don't understand." "You do," Adrian cut in, voice calm but unyielding. "When she lost everything in Plainfield, she came to you, her own son, and you turned her away." Tessa's smile faltered. Michael flushed. "We thought it would be better." "Better for whom?" Adrian's eyes sharpened. "Certainly not for Lorraine. She slept in her car while you enjoyed your sanctuary." The silence was suffocating. I felt my pulse in my throat. But for once, I didn't interrupt. I wanted to hear him say it all. Adrian leaned back slightly, his presence filling the room. "Now, suddenly, your interest in her well-being has returned. You ask about my business, my assets, my future. Let me be very clear. Lorraine doesn't need your approval, your conditions, or your protection. What she needs is love. And if you can't offer that, then you have no place here." Michael's voice rose, tinged with anger. "Are you saying I don't care about my own mother?" Adrian's reply was soft but devastating. "I am saying you care more about what you think she might inherit than about her happiness. That isn't love. Michael, that's opportunism." Tessa shifted uncomfortably, eyes darting between us. We never met. But I finally spoke, my voice breaking but clear. "The night of the tornado, I needed a son. You chose yourself. That's something I will never forget." The words hung heavy in the air. Michael's face twisted, torn between shame and fury. He shoved back his chair, muttering something about being insulted, and stormed toward the door. Tessa followed, her heels clicking like gunshots across the tile. When the door slammed shut, the house was still again. And then my phone buzzed. A message. From the Land Trust office in Plainfield. The subject line read, "Redevelopment Notice." The message on my phone made my hands tremble. It was from the Plainfield Land Trust office. Redevelopment approved. Priority granted to displaced residents. Project overseen by Coal Redevelopment. I turned to Adrian, confusion and awe washing over me. You didn't tell me." He met my eyes, calm but tender. "I didn't want you to think this was pity. My firm won the bid fairly, but I made sure the plan honored the families who lost everything. That includes you. Lorraine, your right to return is protected." Tears blurred my vision. The same man who had once promised me the world as a teenage boy was now giving me back a future I thought the tornado had erased. 6 months later, on a crisp October morning, I stood in Adrian's backyard, overlooking Lake Michigan. The garden was ablaze with autumn colors, crimson maples framing rows of white chairs. There was no grand choir, no cathedral, no crowd to impress. Just a handful of people who mattered. Maria, the housekeeper. Thomas Adrian's, longtime business partner and a minister who'd known Adrian since college. I wore a simple navy dress. Adrian wore a charcoal suit, his silver hair gleaming in the sunlight. When he took my hands, I felt 17 again, standing at the quarry with the boy who swore he'd come back for me. We exchanged vows with quiet voices, and when the minister pronounced us husband and wife, Adrian kissed me gently, reverently, like time itself had been waiting for this moment. Michael came, alone. He stood awkwardly at the back, watching with an expression I couldn't read. Afterward, he approached, shifting from foot to foot, like a boy again. "Mom," he said, voice rough, "I am sorry. For everything." I touched his arm, I forgive you, I said softly. But forgiveness doesn't erase consequences. Love me because I am your mother, not because of what you think I have. He nodded, eyes downcast. For once, there was no argument, just silence. And maybe, just maybe, the beginning of something real. That night, Adrian and I sat on the porch, the lake glittering beneath the stars. I leaned against him, feeling his steady warmth, and spoke to myself as much as to him. The tornado took my house, my furniture, my rose garden, but it also stripped away illusions. It showed me who my son really was, and it brought me back to the man I was always meant to find. Sometimes destruction clears the ground for new foundations. I looked out at the water, heart steady, voice clear. At 66, I have learned this: you are never too old to rebuild. You are never too broken for love to find you again. When I look back now, I realize the tornado was only part of the storm. The greater storm came afterward, being turned away by my own child. Realizing that sometimes the people you expect to shelter you are the very ones who shut the door. But I also learned something I never imagined at 66. Loss can clear the ground for new beginnings. Adrian reminded me that love can survive decades of silence and still return stronger than ever. He taught me that dignity is not measured in money or houses, but in the way we choose to stand when life knocks us down. So if you take anything from my story, let it be this: you are never too old to rebuild, never too broken to find love again. Now I want to hear from you. What lesson do you take from this story, and what city are you watching from?